The nominees for the Hall of Fame were announced, and I normally don't talk about that until we reach the final 15. However, the first year nominees, there's just a lot of unique stories and just interesting careers with these nominees, and I just wanted to break them all down, talk about who I feel has the best chance to get in on the first ballot, and who potentially will be in the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. What's going on, guys? Dick's Report here, back to another video. And today, we're just going to talk about the first two nominees. I'm not going through every single one of them. That would take forever. But these first year guys, I mean, these are some very unique stories and some really tremendous, great players. And I'm not sure who's going to get in first ballot. I don't even know if we're going to have a first ballot Hall of Famer this go around. But there are definitely some great cases for that. Let's just break them all down and talk about it. Alright, so I'm going to go by position, and the first name I got to talk about is Eli Manning. Eli Manning, first overall picked by the San Diego Chargers, traded to the New York Giants, struggles early in his career, and in 2007 just has a magical run and defeats the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl. And then just 4 years later, in 2011, after the lockout, the Giants have a magical run again and beat, you guessed it, Tom Brady and the Patriots once again. Now, his career is not just defined by those two Super Bowls, although it's a pretty good thing on his resume. He's also a four-time Pro Bowler and lasted a long time as the New York Giants starting quarterback. I mean, that has to count for something, doesn't it? He's definitely the best quarterback since the Super Bowl era for the New York Giants. Just edges over Phil Simms. He's going to get in. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, you're talking about a guy that is a two-time starting quarterback champion and a two-time Super Bowl MVP. And keep this in mind, the only quarterback that has won multiple Super Bowls as a starter and not gotten into the Hall of Fame is Jim Plunkett, and Eli Manning was definitely better than Jim Plunkett. Now, whether he's going to get in first ballot, I'm not sure. I'll be honest. It's a tough one. I feel like it's going to matter how much you put into those Super Bowls. You put a lot into those Super Bowls, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But if you want to look at his career more than just the Super Bowls, he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer. But he is going to get in. I'm not sure. I can't make a prediction on this one. I really can't. Marshawn Lynch. Beast Mode, Seattle, Super Bowl, Skittles, amazing player. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums him up. Marshawn Lynch was drafted in the first round by the Buffalo Bills and was a two-time 1,000-yard rusher with them. But he was caught in a logjam with him, Fred Jackson, and C.J. Spiller. So they traded him to the Seattle Seahawks, and it took him a while for him to get going. But that playoff game against New Orleans with the Beastquake, that is what set the tone for his tenure with Seattle. He was just an amazing running back with them. I mean, we're talking about a guy that was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, a member of the 10,000-yard rushing club. He even took a year off and still showed that he had something left in the tank with the Raiders. He's getting in. You cannot leave Marshawn Lynch out of the Hall of Fame, being part of the reason why Seattle won that Super Bowl in 2013. Without him, they don't win it. And really, they should have won it the following year had they given him the ball at the 1-yard line. I know, poor memory for Seattle fans. I know. But my point is, Marshawn Lynch, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. It's not going to be first ballot. I just don't think that's going to happen, but he is going to get in. Alright, what more can we say about Darren Sproles? I mean, this guy was just an amazing football player. Just a pure football player. That's what I call him. He wasn't great at one thing, I know. He was considered too short to really stick in the NFL, but he lasted a long time, and he just did a number of things. Catch passes out of the backfield, run the ball, return kicks. He did it all. He had over 19,000 all-purpose yards in his career, was a member of the 2010s All-Decade team. Not bad for a guy that was considered too short. It's going to be hard for him to be in the Hall of Fame, I'm going to be honest, because he was a jack of all trades, master of none, and those guys just don't make the Hall of Fame typically. But I feel like you could make an exception for him. If anybody's going to get the exception, it's going to be him. I mean, come on, if Devin Hester can make it into the Hall of Fame, maybe Sproles can too. It's tough, and we're not sure what's going to happen, but hey, it could. We lost Demaryius Thomas way too young. I mean, he should still be here in this world with us, and it sucks that he's gone. It really does. It shook up a lot of people, because no one saw it coming. But talking about his NFL career, Demaryius Thomas was just a very, very good receiver. It took him a few years to get his career going, but during the second half of that 2011 season with Tim Tebow at quarterback, he really showed what he could do. And then once Peyton Manning signed, he just took off and never looked back. This was a guy that was a 5-time Pro Bowler throughout his career and even produced when Manning left after they won the Super Bowl in 2015. Keep in mind, he produced with Trevor Siemian at quarterback. Trevor Siemian, and he still put up good numbers. I think he's a Hall of Very Good, but not Hall of Fame. I think he's just missing some things on the resume. He didn't have over 10,000 yards for his career, and in a modern-day receiver, it's going to be hard for a modern-day receiver to not make it in the Hall with at least 10,000 career receiving yards. It's going to be hard. Again, he was a very good player, and a guy that we should never forget about. But it's just hard to say that he is a Hall of Famer with knowing what is needed for that. It's a hard one, and I hate saying it, but I just don't think Demaryius Thomas is going to get into the Hall of Fame. I don't. Another guy that took a few years to get going was Vernon Davis. Davis was drafted in the first round and didn't really have his breakout season until 2009. But once he did, he was one of the best tight ends in the league. 2-time Pro Bowler and a second-team All-Pro back in 2013. This guy was just a very, very good player once he got going. Helped the 49ers get to the Super Bowl in 2012. Was traded to Denver in 2015. Won a Super Bowl ring with them. And then finished his career in Washington. Vernon Davis, and this guy's a Maryland guy. Alright, I'm from Maryland. And just seeing a Maryland guy like him succeed, it really just puts a smile on my face every time I saw him make a big play. Except when it was against my team. But I digress. Very good player, but it's the same thing as Demaryius Thomas. I don't know if he quite has the resume to be a Hall of Famer. Again, it's a Hall of Very Good. I just think the resume's missing just a little extra for him to be Hall of Fame. And there's nothing wrong with that. No, again, Vernon Davis, great player, just barely misses the Hall of Fame. Davis's old teammate, Joe Staley. Joe Staley was drafted in the first round the year after Davis, and I think he's one of the forgotten great left tackles of that period because he was just so good. Just so good. Every time you watched a 49er game, he just did his job. I mean, he was a member of the All-Decade team. 7-time Pro Bowler. This is a guy that was just a great offensive lineman, just a great left tackle. You knew when Staley was in the lineup, that edge rusher on his side was just going to be held dormant for most of the game. Or maybe for all of the game. That's how great he was. I think he's getting in. A guy like this, he has to get in at some point. I don't think he's going to be first ballot, but he's going to get in at some point. I'd be shocked that Joe Staley did not make the Hall of Fame at some point. He was that good of a player. Luke Kuechly. I got nothing but praise for Luke Kuechly. Defensive Rookie of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year. 7-time All-Pro and Pro Bowler, and just one of the greatest middle linebackers of his era. Probably the greatest middle linebacker of his era, if I'm being completely honest. He's got all the characteristics of a first ballot Hall of Famer. The only thing that's going to hold him back is the fact that he only played 8 years. But for me, when you're looking at Hall of Famers, you're looking at a 7 to 8 year period of them being the best of the best at their position. That's what Kuechly was right away. Lasted 8 years. He never really lost it. He had some injury issues the last year of his career, and that's what caused him to retire. But he was just great when he was on the field. Very durable for the first 7 years of his career. To me, I put him first ballot, but some voters might say, well, if he played an extra 2 years, maybe I would put him first ballot, but he only played 8. I don't care. I don't care that he didn't play 10 years in the NFL. I don't care that he only played 8. I would put him first ballot. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if Luke Kuechly doesn't get in the Hall of Fame because he only played 8 years in the NFL, I mean, there's just something wrong with the voters. He's going to get in at some point, and I think we all know it. So we moved from one Defensive Player of the Year to another in Terrell Suggs. Terrell Suggs was drafted in 2003, and he won the Defensive Rookie of the Year with 12.5 sacks, and that set the tone for his career. Had 139 sacks in a 17-year career. 16 of them with the Baltimore Ravens. He is a Raven great, and the Ravens have had some great defensive players in their franchise history. Do I even have to name them? Seriously, do I? Anyway, in 2011 he won Defensive Player of the Year, but then in 2012 he tore his Achilles in March, but was back on the field later that season, later tore his bicep, and continued to play through it as the Ravens won the Super Bowl that year. If that's not dedication, I don't know what is. And then he returned to form in 2013. To me, there's no doubt in my mind Suggs is going to the Hall of Fame. It's not going to be first ballot. I just don't see it being first ballot, but he's going to get in at some point because a guy that was that feared when he was on the field lasted a long time as a Raven and just had the consistency that he did. Yeah, he had peaks and valleys throughout his career, but he played at a high level for a long time, and I got to go with him as a Hall of Famer. He's going to get in at some point. You know, it's not often that an NFL player starts as a rookie when they're drafted in the 6th round. It's even less often that they last 14 years in the NFL. That's exactly what Antoine Bethea did. Antoine Bethea was a 6th round pick by the Colts in 2006. Started right away as a rookie, was a starter for the year that they won the Super Bowl. So, in his first year, he's a starter right away, and he's on a Super Bowl winning team. I can't think of a better way to start a career. But that just set the tone for his career, which lasted 14 years, like I said, made 3 Pro Bowls, and was productive for multiple teams throughout his career. And I think he just misses the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Very Good, just misses the Hall of Fame though. But this is a story that a lot of NFL fans just love to see. A guy that is not expected to do much, but is able to produce at a high level for a long time. Again, 14 years as a 6th round pick. You don't see those that often. Now here's a guy that was expected to produce right away, Aqib Talib. Aqib Talib was drafted in the 1st round by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was a good corner for them, but he didn't hit his stride until he went to the Patriots and later the Broncos. That's when he became a shut-down corner. I just remember when he was with the Patriots and the Broncos, you knew the number 1 receiver was going to have issues with him the entire game. And as hard as it is for defensive backs to catch a break with the Hall of Fame voters at times, I feel like Aqib Talib is going to be in the Hall of Fame. The guy was just a shutdown corner when he was at his best, and for me, there's no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind he's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. Again, no doubt. I think he's going to be in there. It's not going to be first ballot. It's not going to be first ballot, but he will be in there at some point. Okay, just looking at Earl Thomas's career, he was one of the best free safeties in his era. Maybe the best free safety during his era. I mean, you don't make 5 All-Pro teams just by being a slouch. But the problem is how his career ended, and I don't think I have to talk about it, but I'm just going to mention this. He signed with the Ravens in 2019. That year, he made his 7th Pro Bowl, but then the following offseason, he got into an altercation with Chuck Clark, and he was cut right away. Cut right away, and the team never picked him up anymore because he had his issues during the final years with the Seahawks and then his issues with the Ravens. It's what led him to not playing again after being cut by the Ravens when he probably could have. Is that going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame? I hope not, because by all accounts, he should be in the Hall of Fame. Probably should be a first ballot. But I just don't see that happening. Not the first ballot. I think eventually he's going to get in. But I don't see the first ballot just because of how his career ended, and that is going to leave a sour taste with some voters. But if that keeps him out of the Hall of Fame, that would be a shame, because this was just one of the best safeties during his time. Again, maybe the best free safety during his time. Alright, we got one name left, and I think I saved the best for last. Adam Vinatieri. Greatest kicker in NFL history. What more do I have to say? Alright, I'll say more. He signs with the Patriots in 1996. Wins the kicking job. That year they go to the Super Bowl. Even though they lost, Vinatieri would start a career that lasted over 20 years and had great memories with two different teams. With the Patriots, he wins 3 Super Bowls, responsible for the game-winning kick in the first 2. Then goes to the Colts in 2006, the year that they won the Super Bowl, and is the reason why they won the divisional round against the Ravens. He kicks 5 field goals in a game that was in sloppy conditions. No one scored a touchdown in that game. The reason they won that game was because of Adam Vinatieri. Without him, they might not have won that game. And it was on their way to the Super Bowl. And after that Super Bowl, just great moments throughout Vinatieri's career. To me, if he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, then none of these guys are. I know, he's a kicker. He's only on the field for a few seconds every game. However, when you're as good of a kicker as he was responsible for so many wins, is the reason why the Patriots won their first 2 Super Bowls with those game-winning kicks. To me, that's first ballot. To me, he should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And if anybody's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, it's definitely going to be him. And if he's not, nobody else is. I'm going to reiterate that. Alright guys, those are my thoughts on the first year nominees for the Hall of Fame. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you think is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer? And who do you think is going to get in eventually? And I'll see you guys next time.